Hello students, in this video we shall cover the histology of alimentary canal. As we know that alimentary canal consists of esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and appendix. Again in small intestine we have got three parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and in large intestine we have got colon, rectum and the terminal part that is called as the anal canal, and we have got a vestigial remnant in the gastrointestinal tract that is called as the appendix. Now whether to decide what is the general structure of a histology of alimentary canal, then it is a luminal structure with four layers. So all the parts of alimentary canal will be luminal structures with four layers. Which are the four layers from inside out? First is the mucosa, that is the innermost layer. Outside the mucosa we will have the submucosa. Outside the submucosa we will have the muscularis externa, and outside the muscularis externa we will have either serosa or adventitia. So these are the four layers which is generally present in all the parts of alimentary canal, right from esophagus up to the anal canal. In all the parts of alimentary canal there will be presence of these four layers. So even in the histology slide, if you want to term or we have to label a slide to be of a part of alimentary canal, then it should have these four layers. That is, first it should be a luminal structure, and the four layers from lumen to outside should be mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa and serosa or adventitia. So if you want to draw the schematic diagram of general plan of any alimentary canal, then this thick layer which you are able to see here, 1, 2 and 3 together, this 3 together, it is called as the mucosa. So the innermost layer is the mucosa. Then this wide layer which you are able to see, in which there are so many glands are present, blood vessels will be present, lymphatics will be present, nerve plexus, nerve terminals may be present. All these things are present in this layer, and it is made up of a connective tissue. So this layer is called as the submucosa. Outside the submucosa we have got the double layered structure that is called as the muscularis externa. So there will be two layers of muscle layer, smooth muscles in muscularis externa, and outside it we will either have serosa or we will have adventitia. So these are the four layers in general in any part of alimentary canal: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa and serosa or adventitia. So that is about the general structure of the entire alimentary canal. So if you want to see in a slide, this is the slide of a suppose any GIT part, alimentary canal part. So this is this entire thick layer 1, 2 and 3. This together forms the mucosa. Sorry, up to here this is the 1, 2 and 3. This 3 layers forms the mucosa. Then this connective tissue layer which you are able to see here in between, this is the submucosa. Here this muscle layer 2 together, this one and this another, these two are together called as the muscularis externa, and outside the muscularis externa there is presence of serosa or adventitia. So this is how you can identify the four layers in a histology slide under the microscope. So now we first see what are the individual layers, then we will see what are the differences in the individual layers in different parts of alimentary canal. So first one, that is the mucosa. So it is the innermost layer made up of three concentric layers. So it is itself is made up of three, as I already said. In that the innermost is the epithelium, outside to it is the lamina propria and outside to it is the muscularis mucosa. See here the word is muscularis mucosa, not muscularis externa. In mucosa the smooth muscle layer which is present, it is called as muscularis mucosa, whereas the thick muscle layer which is present outside the submucosa, it is called as muscularis externa. So this is the epithelium. Then this layer is called as the lamina propria, and this muscle layer is called as the muscularis mucosa. So the three layers of mucosa are epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. Now if we talk about first the epithelium, so the epithelium lining is different in different parts of alimentary canal. Like in esophagus we have got the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. In stomach we have got simple columnar epithelium. Then in small intestine we generally have the simple columnar epithelium with microvilli, and then again in large intestine we have got the simple columnar epithelium. So the epithelium of the alimentary canal varies from region to region depending on its function, because esophagus does not have any secretory or absorption function. That's why the epithelium, but it has to do the function of protection. That's why the esophagus has the epithelium of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Stomach has got a very important function of secretion of various enzymes and various other things, hormones and enzymes and hormones. So that's why the epithelium there is simple columnar, whereas small intestine has to do a major part of absorption of nutrient. That's why the epithelium there is simple columnar epithelium with microvilli. Similarly, in large intestine there is absorption of water, but also secretion of some remnants there. That's why the epithelium there remains to be simple columnar epithelium. Then lamina propria consists of loose connective tissue, and there are presence of various mucus secreting glands in the lamina propria. Muscularis mucosa is it may be single or concentric layers of smooth muscles. Sometimes somewhere it may be inner circular and outer longitudinal, or in some places there will be only single layer of smooth muscles. So we can just remember that muscularis mucosa is a layer of smooth muscle present between lamina propria and submucosa. It is the outermost layer in the mucosa, the muscularis mucosa. Then if we say what is submucosa, again submucosa is also made up of loose connective tissue and consists of glands, blood vessels and lymphatics. Muscularis externa is a double layered smooth muscle layer which is having generally inner circular and outer longitudinal layers. And serosa or adventitia, it is the outermost lining of the alimentary canal, where it is important to remember, if a structure is peritoneal structure, then that means the outer covering of that structure will be serosa, here this one. But if the structure is retroperitoneal structure, then the outermost covering of that structure will be the adventitia, which is consisting of loose areolar connective tissue, adipose tissue and the neurovascular bundle. Neurovascular bundle means blood vessels, that is artery and vein, and the nerve which will be present in that outermost layer. So it is not always that both serosa and adventitia both will not be present together. Either serosa will be present or adventitia will be present, depending whether the structure is peritoneal structure or retroperitoneal structure. So now very importantly, that how to describe the histology of alimentary canal. Suppose in exam you are asked a histology of any of the part of the alimentary canal, say esophagus or stomach or duodenum, jejunum, ileum, any one part. So it is very easy to write. You have to write it in the form of introduction. So you should write 1 or 2 sentences about where that part is located, what are the main functions of that part, or what is the size of that part. You can write something about it, so as to just add few lines in the introduction section. Then you have to describe the 4 layers, that is mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa here, and serosa or adventitia. So in all this you can write the same thing which I have already mentioned till now. You can write those few points, 2 or 3 points which I have mentioned in every subheadings, and then you can add in that subheadings if there is any special features with respect to those things, right? Suppose in some part there is some special mucosal features are there, or if there is in some part some special features are there in muscularis externa, so you have to describe that in details in that part. Otherwise in remaining part you can write more or less the same thing. Okay, so this is how you can easily answer the question. Then draw the schematic diagram, which I am going to show you in this slides. Okay, so this is how you will be able to answer the question of histology of any part of the alimentary canal. So suppose first we start with esophagus. So what is the histology of esophagus? So you can write introduction. Esophagus extends from the pharynx to the upper part of the stomach, right? You can write that way. You can write about the length of the esophagus. Then we have to describe the histology of esophagus in the form of mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and then serosa or adventitia. So in esophagus, in mucosa we have got a special feature that the epithelium of the esophagus is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The lamina propria there is very thin, cannot be distinguished very clearly, but you can write that lamina propria consists of connective tissues, loose connective tissue and mucosal glands. You can write in that, and then you have to write about submucosa. It is consisting of loose connective tissue with blood vessels, glands, and nerves, and all those things. Similarly, in the muscularis externa in esophagus, they are consisting of both striated, that is the and the non-striated muscles, that is smooth muscles and the skeletal muscles. Both are present in the muscularis externa of the esophagus. So these two highlighted points should be present in your answer, and these two highlighted points helps you in identifying the slide of esophagus in the histology practical also. So this striated and non-striated muscles. So if you want to go in, if we see the further details of it, then in upper 1/3 of the esophagus there is presence of only striated muscles. Then in the middle 1/3 of the esophagus there is presence of both striated and non-striated muscles, and then in the lower 1/3 of the esophagus there is presence of only non-striated, that is only smooth muscles are present in the lower 1/3 of the esophagus near the cardioesophageal junction. And then there will be presence of adventitia, because esophagus is not a peritoneal structure, so there you will find the presence of the adventitia, not the serosa. Okay, so and then in the adventitia you can write it is made up of loose connective tissue and consists of neurovascular bundle. The general introduction which I have already mentioned, that points can be written anywhere throughout any of our regions. So that way it is easy for you to write the answer in the exam. So that is about the esophagus. The two main highlighted points are the epithelium is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, and the muscularis externa consists of both striated and the non-striated muscles. If you see the slides, then this is the photograph which I have already shown. This is actually the photograph or the schematic diagram of the esophagus. So this is the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium present. This is the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. In the outer layer, although not shown very clearly here, but there will be presence of both striated and non-striated muscle fibers. And in the submucosa there will be presence of the esophageal glands. In the lamina propria also there will be presence of the glands. So that is in general what we have already seen, that all things are present in the remaining part of the esophagus. So this is the same slide, non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium and presence of mixed skeletal as well as the striated muscle fibers in the muscularis externa. Then here we need to remember the two types of glands which are present in the esophagus. One is the esophageal glands. They are present in the submucosa, hence they are also called as the submucosal gland, and it secretes acidic mucus. Whereas the other type of glands, they are the mucosal glands. That means they are present in the lamina propria of the mucosa, and they are mainly present near the cardioesophageal junction, and it secretes neutral mucus. It does not secrete the acidic mucus, it secretes the neutral mucus. So these are the two types of glands present in the esophagus: the esophageal glands, also called as the submucosal glands, and the cardiac glands, also called as the mucosal glands. So that is about the histology of esophagus. So you can write about the general structure of whatever you have seen, the specific points in that, about the epithelium and the muscularis externa, and then you can add about these glands of esophagus, and then you have to draw the schematic diagram which I have already shown. So that is how you can describe the esophagus. Coming to the next is the stomach. Now again, the histology of the stomach can be divided into two parts because they are structurally slightly different in both the parts. So fundus and the body of the stomach has got a similar structure, whereas the pylorus of the stomach has got a slightly different function. Now if you want to write about the introduction of stomach, then we can write that it is a muscular bag which acts as a reservoir of stomach. The main function of it is to secrete pepsin and the HCl, so that the food can be broken down into simpler forms. The complex food can be broken down in the simpler forms, and to churn the food so that it can be made softer. Then in the mucosa, it is very important to write that the epithelium consists of simple columnar epithelium, and there is presence of gastric pit. Now what is gastric pit? I will show you in the schematic diagram. And there are presence of different types of cells which are forming a lot of population in the mucosa, that is in the epithelial part, so that the mucosa is not at all seen clearly. It is full of cells in that region. Then the submucosa is similar to the other parts of the GIT. Here the muscularis externa has got 3 layers instead of 2. So generally there is inner circular, outer longitudinal layer. Apart from this, the innermost layer here, the third layer, that is the innermost layer, is the oblique layer here. So there are 3 layers from inside out: oblique layer, circular layer, and the longitudinal layer, by which the food can be properly churned inside the stomach. And because it is a peritoneal structure, that's why here there will be presence of the serosa. So this is how you can describe the fundus and the body of the stomach. Here we need to describe in details about the gastric pit also. So let us see what is gastric pit. Before going to that, see, this is the histology of schematic diagram of histology of stomach. This is here. This will be the last part will be the advent serosa. We have got the muscularis externa. This is the submucosa. This is muscularis mucosa. The lamina propria consisting of large number of glands, and these are the cut sections of gastric pits also. So these are the gastric pits. The epithelium is invaginating inside and then opening as a single opening over the surface of the lumen of the stomach. That part is called, these are all are the gastric pits, and you can see there are different types of cells present in the gastric pit. So what are the different parts of gastric pit, what are the different cells present in them, and what are the functions of them? That can be written in a single table in your exam also. So if you see the histology slide, you can see this mucosa. This is the entire mucosa, which cannot be clearly differentiated into epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa because of the large number of cells and the different glands present all into around the gastric pit because of the invagination of the gastric pit right up to the depth of the mucosa. So this is the zoomed part. You can see the large number of cells and this present in the gastric pits. So the parts of the gastric pits includes isthmus, neck, and the base. There are 3 parts coming from if we start from lumen going into deeper aspect, then there is isthmus, that is at the junction of the surface of the lumen and the gastric pit. That part is called as isthmus. Then a part immediately below it, the narrow part, it is called as the neck, and the broad major part of the forming the major part of the gastric pit, it is called as the base of the gastric pit. So if we see here, so this part is the isthmus here, this part will be the neck, and then this larger part will be called as the base of the gastric pit. And the different cells present are the first is the mucous neck cells, which are present in the neck of the gastric pit. They are low columnar cells, and their main function is to secrete mucus. Parietal or the oxyntic cells are the large pyramidal cells present at the isthmus of the gastric pit, and their main function is to secrete HCl, that is hydrochloric acid, and the intrinsic factor which is responsible for absorption of vitamin B12 from the food. The third type of layers are the chief cells, or also called as the peptic cells, also known as the zymogenic cells. So they are the columnar cells, mainly present at the base of the gastric pit, and their main function is to produce pepsinogen. So that is about the three major cells in the gastric pit, that is the mucous neck cells, parietal or the oxyntic cells, chief or peptic or the zymogenic cells, and their shape, location in the gastric pit, and the secretion. Apart from that, in the entire GIT, we will find a group of cells that is called as the enteroendocrine cells, which has got the function of both as a part of immune system as well as a part they secrete various hormones. So that is a very important group of cells that is called as the enteroendocrine cells. They are the unicellular cells present in the base of the gastric pit, and their main function is to secrete serotonin and gastrin. So that is about the gastric pit. So in order to describe the histology of fundus and the body of the stomach, we need to write about the mucosa. In a mucosa, the epithelium and the gastric pit, the cells in the gastric pit, and then we need to write about submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. This is how you can describe the histology of stomach. Now coming to the part of the pylorus of the stomach. Here the major difference between the pylorus and the fundus of the stomach, or the remaining part of the stomach and the pylorus, is that the cells here are simple tall columnar epithelium with gastric pits, but the number of cells, that is the pepsin cells and the oxyntic cells and the you can say the mucous neck cells, are comparatively less in number. So we will be able to see gastric pit more clearly as compared to that of the remaining part of the stomach. So it is generally said in various books that the gastric pits are shallow in remaining part of the body and the fundus, whereas the gastric pits are deep in case of pylorus. But actually the thing is that in pylorus the number of cells are very less. That's why the gastric pit is clearly seen, whereas in case of stomach, remaining part of the stomach, the gastric cells, the various cells are very much in number, and that's why the gastric pit is less clearly seen, and it appears as if the gastric pit is shallow. The remaining part of the submucosa and muscularis externa and serosa will be same as that of the fundus and the body of the stomach. So this is how, here you can see there are almost no cells present. Yes, there will be presence of the pyloric glands in the lamina propria. This all part is lamina propria. Whatever connective tissue is present beneath the epithelium, it is called as lamina propria. So and the epithelium is tall columnar epithelium. So if you see this is the epithelium part, and this is the gastric pit part, and you can even see the glands present in the lower part. All these are the glands. These are the gastric pits in the epithelium of the pylorus. Again, you can see very clearly the glands, the cut sections of the gastric pits. So gastric pits are extending right up to the muscularis mucosa. They are very thin, deep up to the muscularis mucosa. Then we see about the small intestine. In small intestine we have got three slides, or we can describe it in three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Again, all the three parts will have a common structure, that is mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and there will be presence of either serosa or adventitia. Mainly there will be presence of serosa in most of the part. Only in the first part and the fourth part of the duodenum we will have serosa, because they are fixed part, they are retroperitoneal part, and also the second part is also retroperitoneal. But in small intestine we need to describe these four structures. So if in a answer of duodenum, ileum, and jejunum, you have to write about the four general layers. Then you have to also write that there is some morphological specialization in small intestine. What are the morphological specialization? That first of all, there is the mucosa and the submucosa forms a transverse folds into the lumen, towards the lumen of the individual structure, that is either duodenum, ileum, or whatever is there. It forms the transverse folds towards the lumen, more prominent in duodenum and in jejunum, and those transverse folds are called as the plica circularis or valve of Kerckring. They are called as plica circularis or valve of Kerckring. Then apart from that, the mucosa itself, here first of all it was mucosa and submucosa forming a fold, then within on that fold the mucosa itself forms a finger like folding. So it is slightly different. Here there was mucosa and submucosa both. Now over the submucosa, in the individual plica circularis, there will be again multiple finger like projections of mucosa, which is called as the villi, and which gives the appearance of the mucosa as velvety appearance, and it increases the surface area for the absorption. So that is very important modification, the presence of villi, finger like projections over the plica circularis. So there is increase in the amount of folding. First it was mucosa and submucosa, then mucosa itself now further folds more. Now within the villi, each villi, the cells, individual cells are having finger like projections from the surface of the individual cells. Now individual cells in the mucosa or over the individual villi, in the individual villi there will be presence of microvilli, that is they are the finger like projections present on the individual cells. So by these three modifications, plica circularis, then villi and microvilli, there is increased amount of foldings within the lumen towards the lumen of the duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and by that they increase the surface area of these structures so that more absorption can be done and faster absorption can be done. And the epithelium, apart from forming these foldings, it also goes deep inside towards the submuscularis mucosa in the form of crypts of lubricant. So the gastric pits which we are talking about in the stomach, similar pits in the small intestine, they are called as the crypts of lubricant. So your answer of any part of small intestine should consist of these four words, that is plica circularis, villi, microvilli and crypts of lubricant. They are the simple tubular mucosal glands extending, actually mucosal infolding extending into the muscularis mucosa. It is the infoldings up to the muscularis mucosa. And then you have to write about the different layers, what is the epithelium of the structure, what is submucosa, any other specification in this in mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa or serosa and adventitia. Apart from that, the cells in the epithelial lining of the small intestine, they are slightly different. First are the absorptive columnar cells, which forms the major part of the epithelium of the small intestine. Then there will be presence of very few scattered goblet cells, which secretes mucus. They are the unicellular cells which is secreting the mucus. Then there will be undifferentiated stem cells which will be present at the base of the crypts of lubricant, which multiplies to grow the new cells as they get worn out over the surface. Then there are presence of the zymogen cells or the Paneth cells, which are rich in zinc, and their main function is to produce lysosomes which destroys the bacteria which is present in our food that we eat. And then there is a group of enteroendocrine cells, they are called as the argentaffin cells, present within the small intestine. So in any answer of small intestine, first you should write about these modifications present in them, then the different cells present in them, and then you have to describe the four layers as a general plan of the alimentary canal. And the lamina propria consists of cells of immune system called as GALT. It is also called as gut associated lymphatic tissue. So this is how you have to describe the small intestine. So in duodenum introduction, it is the first part of the small intestine. It is 10 inches long, that is 25 centimeters long. It has got 4 parts. Its main function is to transport the food, and slightly because there are various enzymes and hormones secreted from liver and pancreas into the second part of the duodenum, so it helps in breakdown of the food there also. And that's why the epithelium there is simple columnar epithelium with microvilli. Remaining lamina propria and the muscularis mucosa is same as the other parts. Even in submucosa, the very important feature which is present in the submucosa, it is the presence of these mucosal glands, mucus gland, not mucosal glands, mucus glands, which are called as Brunner's glands. It is present in the submucosa, and by the presence of these Brunner's glands, we can identify the duodenum in the histology slides. The submuscularis externa and the serosa or adventitia will be similar to the general plan. So if you see the schematic diagram, so you can see the epithelium. This is columnar epithelium with scattered goblet cells. These are the crypts of Lieberkühn. These are the crypts of Lieberkühn. And if you can see here, this at the apex of these cells, these are the microvilli. So these are the villi. The foldings are called as the villi, and over the foldings, these individual cells are also having some finger-like projections. They are called as the microvilli, and that's why this border is also called as brush border, or sorry, not brush border. It is also called as the striated border. And in the submucosa here, there is presence of lots of mucous glands, that is called as the Brunner's glands. So that is the histology of duodenum. So if you see the slide, this is the epithelium part, this is the mucosa, submucosa filled up of the large number of Brunner's glands, and then the muscularis externa is present on this side. Again here, this is the large number of mucous glands present in the submucosa of the duodenum. These are called as Brunner's glands. Jejunum is very simple. You don't have to write much details. It is the second part of the small intestine, approximately 2.5 meters long. Then the main function of it is to do the major part of absorption of the nutrients. Then while describing the four important layers, the epithelium is simple columnar epithelium with microvilli, and the villi are well defined, very well defined in jejunum. Then remaining submucosa, muscularis externa and serosa or adventitia will be similar to that of the other structures of the GIT. So this is the simple, you can say finger-like projections. So no specific things. It is a pure, you can say a standard structure of a small intestine is seen in a case of jejunum without any modifications in them. So you can see these are the finger-like projections. These are all finger-like projections. You can see here. These are all villi. Still better if you want to see, you can see these are all villi. The vertical projections towards the lumen. These are all villi, and they are well defined and clearly seen in jejunum. Ileum, again the epithelium will be similar like the other parts of the small intestine, that is simple columnar epithelium with microvilli. You can mention about M cells being present in the epithelium. More importantly, in the lamina propria, there will be presence of Peyer's patch, that is the collection of lymphatic tissue in the lamina propria is called as Peyer's patch, and that is a diffuse collection which is present throughout the ileum and around the lumen and all parts of the lumen of the ileum. That's why it is called, and it is called as Peyer's patch. So this is a typical feature by which you can identify the slide of ileum in the histology practical. Remaining parts, submucosa, muscularis externa and serosa will be as per the general structure, general plan. So schematically, you have to draw the diagram like this and show the presence of lymphatic follicles or the lymphatic tissue in the lamina propria known as the Peyer's patch. Although I have not labeled individual layers, but you have to label them. This is epithelium, this is lamina propria, this is muscularis mucosa, this is submucosa, this is muscularis externa, and this will be serosa, because the jejunum and ileum both are covered by mesentery. That's why they will be having the covering of serosa present, not the adventitia. So this is the collection of the diffuse collection of lymphatic tissue in the lamina propria called as the Peyer's patch. So that was about the small intestine. Now coming to the large intestine. Again in large intestine we have got three parts: colon, the vestigial organ appendix, and the terminal part, that just part before the terminal part, that is the rectum. But we will be discussing only the colon in details. Appendix and rectum are almost similar to that of the remaining part of the large intestine. So first we should know what is the histological difference between large intestine and small intestine. The villi, that is the finger-like projections of mucosa, are absent in large intestine. They are present in small intestine. There will be no Brunner's gland present in the submucosa. There will be no Peyer's patch present in the lamina propria, but there will be large number of goblet cells present in the large intestine, and the longitudinal muscle layer of the muscularis externa will not be uniform. It will be in patch in 3 places all around the large intestine structure, large intestine, and they are called as the tinea coli. So tinea coli are the vertical bands of longitudinal muscle fibers which are present at only 3 sites around the large intestine, and that's why when we take the histology section of the large intestine, we will be able to see a well defined circular layer of the smooth muscles, but the large longitudinal layer will be present at only 3 patches. 3 patches will be present in case of longitudinal layer. So this is how you can differentiate a slide of small intestine from the large intestine. So in the colon, again we can write about the length and the parts of the colon. Then we can write about the function like absorption of water and secretion of electrolytes and all those things. Then in the mucosa, we need to mention about the epithelium, that it is a simple columnar epithelium, and the tubular glands are extending throughout the mucosa, and there are numerous goblet cells. The number of goblet cells are 0, almost 0 in stomach, but it gradually increases as we go from duodenum to jejunum, jejunum to ileum, ileum to large intestine. They are largest in large intestine because large amount of mucus needs to be secreted when the feces is going to be formed, so that it can pass out very smoothly. It doesn't cause harm or injury to the epithelial structures. That's why there are numerous goblet cells present. The submucosa is similar to the remaining general structure of our GI tract. Then muscularis externa, as I said, it is having tinea coli. So the 2 layers which are present, that is inner circular and outer longitudinal layer. Out of that, inner circular layer is well defined, it will be clearly seen, but the longitudinal layer will not be clearly seen. It will be seen in patches at 3 places around the lumen of the large intestine, that is called as tinea coli. And the part of the large intestine which is surrounded by the peritoneum will have serosa, and the part which is retroperitoneal will have adventitia. So this is how you can describe the colon, histology of colon. So here it is, the number of goblet cells are increasing. These are the glands present in the lamina propria. These are the cross sections of the glands also. So they are extending throughout the mucosa. The epithelium can be simple columnar, as well as in the initial part of the column it will be simple columnar with microvilli also. But more importantly, there will be presence of this longitudinal layer which will be thickened at 3 parts, and that's why it will be more prominently seen at these 3 parts. That is called as the tinea coli. So this is how you can draw the diagram of tinea coli. So this is the histology of colon, the thick muscle layer, then the large number of goblet cells. If you see, you will be able to see more number of empty cells, because goblet cells look empty in the histology slides of H&E staining. So there are large number of goblet cells present in the epithelium, and the as you can see here, these are the large number of goblet cells which are, and the glands, the tubular glands are extending right up to throughout the mucosa, almost up to the submucosa. And if you see in the outermost part, the longitudinal layer becomes thickened at some places, which is well defined here. This is not seen in case of small intestine. This is called as the tinea coli. So that is about the histology of colon. So here we cover the entire histology of alimentary canal, beginning from esophagus, stomach, then the small intestine having 3 parts, duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and in the large intestine the major important part, that is the colon.